Every shop you have ever walked into is quietly running the same calculation, and it is not about margin. It is about bodies. How many people came through that door today? A supermarket clears 1 to 3 cents on a dollar, which means it needs 1,000+ transactions a day. Every day, forever, or the lights go out. A coffee shop needs a queue at 8 in the morning, or the site is dead within a year. A clothing store needs a crowd on a Saturday. Traffic is the foundation of the entire industry, and starving a store of traffic is the standard way to kill one. Then there is a chain of more than 2,300 stores across the United States that turned over somewhere north of $3 billion last year, and the average location needs about 3 customers a day. 3, not 300. 3 sales in a 12-hour shift, and the store has hit its number. Do the arithmetic yourself, because it is not complicated and nobody ever does it. $3 billion, spread across 2,300 stores, is roughly $1.5 million a store. The average all-in specialty mattress ticket is somewhere around $1,500 to $1,800 once you count everything that ends up on the bill. Divide it out. 800, maybe 1,000 transactions a year. Call it 3 a day. That is why every mattress store you have ever driven past looks abandoned. And it is why it is still there next year, and the year after that, under the same sign, with the same lights on, with nobody inside. And once you see the shape of that, the whole thing rearranges itself. Because if a shop does not need customers in it, then it is not really a shop. And it is not. The empty room is not a symptom of a business dying. The empty room is the point. And no, before anybody types it, it is not money laundering. The real answer is stranger than that, and we are going to get to why the laundering theory is impossible. One thing from you first. What did you pay for your last mattress, and what was the model called? I want the price and the name, because somebody reading this paid $2.5 grand for a bed that is sitting 3 miles away right now, under a completely different name, for $1,000 less. And by the end of this you will understand why they could never have found out. Put it below. And if you are already down there, hitting like and subscribe genuinely helps me more than you would think. So, 3 customers a day. In traffic terms, that sounds like a cheat code. But empty is not the same as cheap. And this is where most people's mental model of a mattress store falls apart. Start with the room, because there is almost nothing in it. Not metaphorically, literally. What sits on that floor is a set of display units, cutaway samples, floor models, one of everything, arranged to be lain on. The mattress you actually buy has never been in the building. It comes out of a regional distribution center and onto a truck, and across the parent company the stock is pooled centrally, rather than sitting in 2,000 stock rooms. A clothing chain is carrying 4 months of guesses about what you will want. A mattress chain is carrying a showroom. Now staff it. Industry figures put mattress closing rates around 80%, against something like 27% for furniture. And the reason is brutal. Nobody wanders into a mattress store for entertainment. Everybody who walks in is already in pain or already moving house. So you do not need 20 walk-ins a day. You need 20 a week, and you need someone to close 16 of them. A handful of people per store, paid heavily on commission, which means that when the room is empty, the payroll is close to zero. Then put that room in a building nobody else wants. Mattress stores do not take prime frontage. They take the dead-end unit of a strip mall. The failed bank branch, the old drive-through, the awkward 2,000 to 4,000 square foot box, with bad parking that a restaurant would never touch. The industry benchmark is that rent should land around 6 to 8% of sales, and a mattress store can hit that in a C location because the ticket is enormous. 12 mattresses in a month pays the lease. No inventory in the store, near zero idle labor cost, bottom-tier real estate, and a $2,000 ticket. That is the cost base, which means the thing this business is actually buying, with the money it spends, is not stock, and not staff, and not even really rent. It is frequency. Hold on to that word. Frequency is the thing that explains everything else, and it means 2 different things at once. Now the structural fact almost nobody knows, and it is the one that breaks the illusion for good. You buy a mattress roughly once every 8 to 10 years. Surveys have put the mean replacement cycle at about 8.5 years, sometimes closer to 9.5 depending who is asking, and it has been shortening, but call it once a decade. That is the constraint that dictates everything, because it means no mattress retailer can build a business on being liked. Nobody has an opinion about mattress shops in year 4. There is no repeat visit, no loyalty program worth running, no reason for you to think about them at all, right up until the morning your back gives out, at which point you are going to drive to whichever one you can picture. So the entire strategy is not to be preferred. It is to be picturable. And the cheapest way on earth to occupy that slot in 100,000 heads is not television, and it is not paid search. It is to sit in a dead retail unit on the road those 100,000 people drive every single day, lit up 7 days a week for 9 straight years, until the day the back goes. That is the second meaning of frequency. In advertising, it is the number of times one person sees your message. A mattress store on a commuter route achieves a frequency of roughly 2,000 impressions per household per year at strip mall rent, and it does it whether anyone walks in or not. The stores are not stores. They are a media buy with beds in them, which reframes the thing everyone finds so funny. 2 of them on the same intersection. Part of that is just hotelling's law, the old observation that 2 ice cream vendors on a beach both end up in the middle because competitors cluster toward the valuable ground and away from the edges. That is real, but the mattress version is sharper. The second store is not competing with the first for today's customers because there are only 3 of them. It is buying more impressions on more roads, cheaper than any other medium, while denying the corner to a rival. Density also collapses your delivery routing costs and lets one local ad campaign carry 10 locations instead of 1. And it has a hard ceiling, which the industry discovered the expensive way. In October 2018, Mattress Firm filed Chapter 11 and moved to shed up to 700 locations, and the reason its own chief executive gave was that it had too many stores in markets where they had begun cannibalizing each other. Billboards stop working when they are shouting over each other. Right, your back has gone, it is Saturday. You drive to the store you can picture, and what happens in the next 20 minutes is the most refined piece of retail engineering in America, and it started long before you arrived, with the labels sewn onto the side. Mattresses are sold under 2 systems. Some are minimum advertised price models. Same name, same price, everywhere. Those are fine. Boring, honest, no reason to shop around. The rest are what the industry openly calls name game models. The manufacturer builds essentially the same bed and ships it to different retailers under different model names, with a different cover, sometimes with one visible bonus feature bolted on to distract you from 2 invisible downgrades underneath. Every large retailer gets its own exclusive names. Regional chains get their own variants. The result, by design, is that the bed you fell in love with on Tuesday cannot be found anywhere else in your city. And here is the detail that tells you exactly who this is built for. It is not the manufacturers. Manufacturers are actively harmed by it because you cannot build brand equity in a product that wears a different name in every shop. The system exists because retailers demand it, and the fattest margins of all sit in house brands, where the store's own name goes on a bed that is a near twin of something else on the same floor. Good Bed, which tracks pricing at over 100 retailers, went and tested how deep it goes. They rang 19 different stores, all of which carried Sealy Posturepedic, and asked each salesperson to point them to their closest equivalent of one specific model sold at Macy's, the Raina Ridge Euro Plush Top. Not one of the 19 could do it. Not one. Even after looking up the specifications. Sit with that, because the usual assumption is that the confusion is something the staff work around. It is not. It is the floor they are standing on. They cannot decode it either. And prices on those models get moved up and down by as much as $1,000 at a time on the same bed, while roughly 67% of buyers say they do not believe they need to negotiate at all. That is rung 1, and unlike a thrift shop, every rung on this ladder goes up. The mattress gets you horizontal, the adjustable base is offered next, and it can add several $100s, sometimes more than the mattress. Then the protector, and notice the mechanism, because it is elegant. Most manufacturer warranties are voided by staining. So the protector is not an accessory, it is a condition of the thing you have just bought. Then the protection plan on top of the warranty, and dealer data puts the uplift at roughly 10 to 25% more gross profit on any sale that carries one. Then pillows and sheets on the walk to the till, because resistance to a $90 pillow 4 minutes after a $2,000 decision is approximately 0. And underneath all of it, financing. Around 3/4 of bedding cardholders say they always look for promotional financing on a purchase this size, and offering it lifts sales by something like 1/5 to 1/4. Every rung of that ladder is climbed in about 20 minutes, lying on your back, in a quiet room, next to a person paid on commission, on the worst day your spine has had in a decade. That is the product. It was never the foam. Now the part of the chain nobody photographs. Because you did not just buy a mattress. You displaced one, and there is a 100-night trial sitting on the paperwork, which is real, and which you might use. So where does the old one go, and where does the returned one go? Not back on the floor. Federal rules require used bedding to be labeled as used. Several states restrict resale outright, and no chain on earth wants to be the one caught reselling somebody's trial period. So a returned mattress is close to a total write-off the moment the truck door shuts. The United States throws away an estimated 18.2 million mattresses a year, roughly 50,000 a day, and only about 19% of them are recycled. Ett samtidigt system en imlatet 9 Understand what that object is at that moment. It stops being a bed. It stops having a brand or a comfort level or a model name that nobody could match anyway. It becomes 200 pounds of steel, foam, and glued textile that is almost perfectly designed to resist disposal. It will not compact. It will not decompose. And in a landfill, it does something the industry has a word for, which is that it springs, popping back and wrecking the compaction of everything stacked on top of it. Where recyclers do get hold of one, it is torn apart mostly by hand, the cover cut off, the foam pulled out and shredded, the spring unit sheared free and sold as scrap steel. 80 to 90% of the material is technically recoverable. 4 out of 5 mattresses never get the chance. So run the sequence plainly. You spend $2,000 in 20 minutes on a product you cannot price check, on a day you are not thinking clearly, in a room that exists mainly to be seen from a car. The retailer is paid, the manufacturer is paid, the lender is paid, monthly, for years. The protection plan underwriter is paid whether or not you claim, and the object at the center of it all has a second life of about 19% probability before it becomes a 200-pound problem that somebody buries. Every stage in that chain got paid. The only participant paying at every stage is you. Now, I am not going to hand you a simple villain here, because the honest version is more interesting than the angry one. Take the laundering theory first, since it has been a Reddit fixture for a decade. It is wrong, and the reason is worth knowing. Laundering needs cash volume and opacity. Mattress retail has almost no cash, the tickets are large, and they run through cards and third-party lenders, which means every single dollar is documented by a regulated bank that has precisely no interest in your crimes. The major chains are private equity owned or publicly listed, audited, with filings anybody can read. As a laundering vehicle, it is close to the worst option available. The boring explanation was always the correct one. And the bigger correction. All that margin talk makes this sound like a license to print money, and it is not. Mattress Firm's gross margin last year ran around 31%, and its operating margin came in at roughly 4%. 4. Thinner than a supermarket's reputation suggests, because everything you save on stock and rent gets eaten by delivery, marketing, and the cost of running 2,300 lightly staffed rooms. When demand goes soft, the whole structure buckles fast. Serta Simmons went into Chapter 11 in January 2023 and emerged having cut funded debt from about $1.9 billion to around $315 million. Casper, the company that was supposed to make all of this obsolete, the bed in a box, no showroom, no salesman, never turned an annual profit, and was quietly sold to a foam manufacturer, Carpenter Co., in late 2024. And Sleep Number 572 Stores, the most vertically integrated operator of the lot, filed Chapter 11 on the 12th of June 2026, reporting about $642 million in assets against $1.3 billion in liabilities, rejecting dozens of leases on day one, with its North American business lined up for sale to an affiliate of Sleep Country Canada for a base price of $415 million. That process was still moving through the summer, so check where it landed. This is not a cartel getting fat. It is a savagely cyclical industry that happens to have found the cheapest possible way to remain visible between booms. Which brings us to the single most instructive transaction in the entire business, and it tells you where the money actually lives. In February 2025, Tempur Sealy, the manufacturer, completed its purchase of Mattress Firm, the largest specialty mattress retailer in America, for roughly $5.1 billion and renamed itself Somne Group. The Federal Trade Commission had sued to stop it, arguing the combined company would have every incentive to steer shoppers toward its own beds and squeeze rival manufacturers off the floor. A federal judge accepted that the incentive was real and declined to block it anyway. The FTC did not appeal. It closed. A few dozen stores were divested around the edges, and that was that. Meet it now. Now read what happened to the numbers, because it is the thesis of the whole industry. The retail arm runs a gross margin around 31%. The North American manufacturing arm, now selling into its own stores, reported a gross margin close to 58%. The money was never in the shop. The money is in the factory. The shop is the toll booth that decides which factory you walk out with. Owning the 20 minutes where the recommendation happens was worth $5 billion, and a court has now confirmed that owning it is legal. There is one more line worth knowing about, and it is the uncomfortable one, because it lives in the gap between the poster and the paperwork. The poster says 100 nights, risk-free and 0% financing. Both of those are true. But the standard promotional structure in this category is deferred interest, not waived interest. If the balance is not cleared inside the window, the interest that has been quietly accruing the entire time lands at once, and Mattress Firm's own card discloses a purchase APR of 34.99%. So the customer who reads the terms and clears it in 11 months pays nothing, and the customer who is a fortnight late pays a rate you would associate with a payday lender, on a bed. Notice who those two customers are likely to be. The structure does not punish the person who overspent. It punishes the person who was closest to not being able to afford it in the first place. And the retailer is paid either way, upfront by the bank. The risk sits with the lender. The consequence sits with the household. The sign on the window and the contract in the drawer describe two different products, and the business is arranged so that neither one has to explain itself to the other. So where does the money actually come from? Not the room. The room is nearly free. There are 3 layers stacked on one very cheap input. There is the ticket layer, where an exclusive model name makes the price literally unverifiable. 19 salespeople could not do it with the specs in front of them, so you were never going to do it on a Saturday. There is the attachment layer, base, protector, plan, financing, where the margin is thickest and the decisions are fastest, made lying down in 20 minutes by somebody who has stopped resisting. And underneath both of those is the shelf layer, where the guaranteed money lives, because whoever owns the recommendation captures the manufacturing margin on every bed that leaves the building. That last layer is why the model is close to unkillable at street level, even while companies keep going bankrupt above it. A normal retailer with an empty store is bleeding out. A mattress store with an empty store is running exactly at plan, because the empty store is the advertisement, and the advertisement does not need you to come in. It only needs you to see it. Which means the customer you assumed was central to all of this, the person on the beds on a Saturday, is only the final 20 minutes of a 9-year process, and the person the business genuinely cannot operate without is not in the store at all, and never was. It is you, in the car, at the lights, glancing at the sign for the 4,000th time and thinking, God, how is that place still open? You never once walked past a dying business. You walked past an advertisement. You read it every single day for 9 years for free. And then your back went, and you did precisely what it was built to make you do.